But wanted to get into some good stuff today. So today is group choice coaching. So we may have some time here at the end to discuss more of where Michael's at in his transactions, or Chelsea, where you're at in your transactions. Same with Keith, just so we can learn from one another. But today, one of the things we wanted to cover was the coming off of the business planning clinic that we attended. Some of us attended last week. We talked about running through the numbers real quick and kind of getting a feel for what calculations need to look like in order to hit your target numbers, and kind of work backwards to see how many appointments per week this looks like in order to hit your goal. So we are going to cover, pardon my handwriting here. I haven't found a way to do it good digitally, but we're going to cover the economic model. Can you all read that, or is it backwards?
We can read it.
It shows up fine.
So the economic model, this comes directly from the Red How to or Millionaire Real Estate book that Gary Keller wrote. If you can see my handwriting, if you're doing calculations as a business owner, which you all are, then your goal numbers are operating expenses should equal 30% of your overall. COS stands for cost of sales. Cost of sales should equal 30%. And then you're left with 40% of your net. These are all percentages of your GCI, meaning, so if I do a transaction, oh, here's Dana, sorry. So if I do a transaction and let's say I sell a $200,000 home, we're going to use nice round numbers for these examples. You can cater this whole thing, this whole calculation to your own numbers. But for this purpose, we're going to use $200,000 home. That makes it on a typical commission of 3%. That would make a $6,000 GCI commission, right? So that's gross commission income before anything's taken out, like company dollar or royalties, anything like that. Cost of sales is anything that is like commissions paid. So for instance, on a typical individual agent, that'd be $21,000 plus $3,000 for royalties. So that's 24K. And then operating expenses are things that are like salaries or marketing, office equipment. If you want to go get clothes printed with your logo, your name on it, like all those things would be costs of sales. I would anticipate, guys, that of this number that we just showed you, where you guys are all at right now, your operating expenses might be about 30%, but your cost of sale really shouldn't be at 30%. It should be much lower than that, because you're not employing a bunch of like ISAs or like people to help you yet. So therefore, your net income would be a little bit higher than what you're seeing here in a typical first year solo agent. So that net, that's what we call margin. So at the end of the day, like your margin, you're hoping to be as close to 50% as possible to really run a lucrative business. But at 40%, you're still running a good business. So I want you to think real quick. Last week we talked a lot about like, what's your big why? This week we had the privilege. I don't know if those of you who were on the monthly meeting call yesterday had the privilege of listening to Linda McKissick, who is basically the OP for the entire region that we work in. Basically, she owns like Keller Williams, Ohio and Kentucky regions. And she was speaking to us about, the big why, about a lot of these numbers and stuff. And so I don't want to dwell too much longer on the big why, but it is important to understand why you're doing this and what your goal is, coming out of real estate. So it might be my goal to make as much money as humanly possible so that I can give back to the community. Maybe that's my big why. But it might be, just throwing something out there. It might be Katie's, big why might be to earn enough money to pay your car off this year. Maybe it's something like that. Real estate, you can do anything you want, right? So my goal as your coach is to help you achieve whatever that goal is. So I do want you to take this next part very seriously. I want you to take a minute, 30 seconds more or less. What number comes to mind in terms of how much money you want to net next year? If I was to say 2021, what would you feel really good December 31st, 2021, looking in your bank account saying, oh, I netted this much? Net means how much you brought home after you paid expenses and stuff. And this is a rhetorical question. I'm not going to ask you all the answer. How much money do I want to make next year? And go ahead and write that. If you got a piece of paper or you've got your notes app, whatever, write that number down. Take your calculator out and divide that number by 0.4. So divide the number that you put by 0.4. Okay. That's your number. Okay. That's the number of GCI that you need to make in order to hit your net number. So GCI is, again, the number of dollars that you're bringing in before anything's taken out. The net is the 40% that we were talking about. That's why you divide it by 0.4. And that's going to get you a good calculation here. I'm going to run through a sample. Chelsea, you're smiling like this is a crazy dream, right?
I'm watching KC. First I thought he was singing. Now he's climbing around his car. Now he's gone. Sorry.
It's okay. We're gonna run through this, and again, excuse my crappy writing and the archaic way of presenting this, but dwell with me here. So this is the economic model that we're gonna run through. Up here, we're just gonna take the calculation that we want to make $100,000 next year. We want to net $100,000. So if I want to net $100,000, I take 100 divided by 0.4, and that equals $250,000 GCI. So 40%, which is my net, of 250,000 would be 100,000. That means if I do my math right, that 75K would be operating expenses and 75K would be cost of sales. Again, that cost of sales number should be a lot lower for us starting out. But operating expenses, if you're really going to sell this many homes, then maybe that's accurate. So from here, we kind of work things in reverse. So I just used a typical transaction commission of $6,000. That is assuming that your average home sale price is $200,000. For those of you who've been in the business a little bit longer, like Brian Ambrosio or Keith Mullins, maybe your average commission is higher. Maybe it's lower. This is all going to be catered to your own numbers. So this calculation, take this with a grain of salt. I'm only doing this for example purposes. At $6,000 commission, if I divide 250,000 GCI divided by 6,000, I need to sell 42 homes next year in order to hit my goal if the numbers work out as they historically have. I'm fortunate in that my average price point this year has been 270,000. So the number of homes that I need to sell if I wanted to hit this goal of $100,000 net is a little bit less because my average commission is higher. Are y'all following me so far?
Yep.
Cool. So the calculation, I'll real quickly run it down one more time. You can write this calculation down and compare it to your own house goals. The net number you want to end with divide it by 0.4, and that's going to get you your GCI. You then divide your GCI by your average commission, and that's going to tell you how many homes you need to sell. But we're not done, folks. We are going to pare down even closer, down to how many appointments we need to make this happen. So if I'm going to sell 42 homes, well, we're going to break this down into buy side and sell side. So sell side means listings, buy sides means buyers. As you can see here, I'm going to take the calculation of 60-40. I'm going to probably have 40% of my 42 come from listings and 60% come from buyers. The reason that this is the case for me this year would be that 2020 has proven that listing inventory is very low. I'm helping more buyers than I am sellers. Hopefully this all changes because sellers are supposed to be easier to deal with, right? There's fewer trips to the home. Hopefully less stress because the buyers come to you. But for this calculation, I'm going 60-40. That tells me that I need a total of, on the buy side at 60%, I need 25 sold. And then I need 17 listings sold. Okay, so I take my overall number, 42 homes need to be sold. I multiply it by 0.6 and 0.4. And that's how I got those numbers. So that's how many total I need to sell. Now we're going to continue to work backwards even further. What is my conversion rate? If I get a listing into contract, how many of those listings actually finally sell? This is going to be different with all of us, okay? With me, it's probably closer to 9 out of 10, so 90%. But with a brand new agent or maybe somebody working with a lot of investors, like investment properties can be a challenge to sell because there's always something wrong with it. Maybe your conversion rate is lower. Maybe it's three out of every 4 homes sell and 75%. For this exercise, I'm using 75% because I think that speaks to the average realtor, which you guys are not. You're above average. So if I was going to take on the buy side, I wanted to sell 25 homes. I'm going to divide that by 0.75. And that means I need 34 buyers in contract. My next conversion is, or my next percentage is another conversion rate. And that is how many appointments am I converting to actual clients? So if I meet with a person for the first time, how frequently do they end up using me as their realtor? For this calculation, I'm again going to go with 3/4 or 0.75, otherwise known as 75%. So if I take 34 divided by 0.75, I know that I need to go on 46 buyer appointments next year. Are these calculations easy enough for you guys? I'm assuming that's a yes. The last number that we're going to take is how many weeks do I want to work next year? I'm going to go off the assumption that we're going to take 1 vacation a quarter. So that means I'm going to work 48 weeks. So if I divide 46, which is the number of buyer appointments I need, by 48, which is the number of weeks I want to work, that equates to less than 1 appointment per week for buyers. Does that make us feel a little bit more comfortable about our huge number? If I know all I need to do is schedule 1 buyer appointment per week?
Much.
On the sales side, same deal. If let's see here. So 42 homes sold is what my goal is. I'm going to do 40% listings. So I take 42 times 0.4 and I get, what's that number? 17 listings need to be sold. I divide 17 by my conversion rate 0.75, I get 23 listings needed total. And people will cancel listings. I've had listings canceled before because they had a change of heart. So that fallout rate is not atypical. So if I do that math, then I need 23 listings. And then if I'm calculating my conversion percent for listing appointments, let's just say I take a conservative 3 out of every 4. My number is much higher, but I'm primarily working with people I already know, which makes it easier. So 23 divided by 0.75 equals 31 total listing appointments is what I need. Divide that by 48 weeks worked, and I get way less than 1 appointment needed per week. So as you can see, in order to make $100,000 at the end of the day, after I've taken out all my expenses, I just need 2 appointments per week, 1 buyer, 1 seller. Maybe 1 week you get 2 and 0. Maybe 1 week you get 1 and 1. Maybe 1 week you get 0 and 0. And you know then that you have to work doubly hard next week to get your goal. I always round these numbers up to make them a little bit more challenging because I don't know how you calculate 0.5 appointments, right? Like you either go on 1 or you go on 0. There's no half. I guess you could average it out over 2 weeks, but what's the fun in that? I think the minimum expectation for us all needs to be 1 appointment per week, period. And if we're going to really strive for greatness, I think selling 42 homes in a year, that's a hell of a job. You get, you're a mega agent if you do that, right? That's what I want us to all be if that's what you want to be. So any questions on the calculations?
No.
Any ahas or key learnings there?
I just think, like you said, I mean, that 42 is a big number, but when you break it down like that, it seems more doable. Still challenging, but definitely looks more doable.
Sure. And we can break this number down even further. So if I need 1 appointment per week on the buy side, 1 per week on the listing side, that's a total of 2 appointments that I need per week. How many contacts then, if I'm taking my own historical averages, for me, it's about 100 contacts. If I get 100 contacts in, I ought to get 2 appointments out of that. And that therein you see the push that I have for you guys all to get 100 contacts, because it might not be that easy to start. It might be 200 contacts to get 2 appointments. It might be 200 for 1 appointment when you're starting off. But if you're willing to do the work and you're hungry enough, I promise you that work will pay off. If we're sitting here getting 40 contacts a week, should we really expect to be the best versions of ourselves as realtors? I think that answer is probably a no. So it's all in the work that we're putting in. We're gonna shift gears here now. We're about halfway through the call. I want to open it up to any questions, comments, concerns that you guys have. Any walls that you're hitting? Talk to me. What do you want to talk about?
I mean, I just saw you earlier, so I'm kind of running out.
Yeah, it's been a good morning. I got to see Brian. We hung out at the park, and then I got to see Keith. We got food, so it's been a good start to the day. You know, one of the things that we talked about, though, I'll open it up here, is social media. We talked about social media in both those meetings. Does anybody have any questions about social media?
No, Josh, but can we talk about the spring forecast a little bit with regard to maybe the increase in new builds that are popping up everywhere, how that might affect our local market in terms of whether it's a seller's market for a buyer's market?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I do not have the statistics on how many homes are being added to our inventory. What I will say is we could have 1,000 homes built today and it would still be a seller's market.
Yeah. We still can't keep up with the demand.
Does anybody know why I say that? Like, is there any statistical information that we have access to that we may have talked about in previous classes that might lead us to assume that it would still be a seller's market?
I don't have any
I
actual
don't think this is the input.
statistics, but everything I've read for the past several years is that we can't keep up with the amount of housing actually needed for people moving here, plus people growing into buying homes. Even with condos and the rate they're going up, we can't keep up. We can't build them fast enough.
That's an accurate statement. I'm going to pull up some information here that will, it's a super easy calculation that will make you guys sound like rock star realtors, when in actuality, it was just one number, two numbers you looked at. I'm going to share my screen.
I was just reading an article the other day that said that historically, the shift in the market usually is on like an 18-year scale. And that we're kind of like smack dab in the boom of the seller's market right now. So according to history, we're in a seller's market for quite a while.
Mm.
Well, that's good information. Can you see my screen, guys?
Yeah.
All right. We're going to go to quick search. This is the MLS. Everyone has access here. This would be something that I'd pull up at least once a week, if not once a day. So you're on top of the market. Go to quick search. We are going to search in residential, the entire MLS. We're going to see how many active homes there are. 2583. Somebody remember that number, 2583. Then we're going to go to closings. How many have closed in the last week? 726. So can somebody do the math for me? Divide 2583 divided by 726.
3.55.
3.5. That's the number of weeks of inventory we have. So Dana, to answer your question, even if we had 3,500 homes, Chelsea, what's that math? 3,500 homes divided by 726.
The 3,500
Yeah.
divided by 4.8.
4.8 weeks. It is considered a seller's market if you're 4 months of inventory or less. This is a statistic that we all should memorize, and it's super easy, right? I don't consider myself very good at memorizing things, but I can remember 3.5. 3.5 weeks, that's less than a month of inventory. And what I'm saying there is if we added 0 homes over the next month, we would literally run out of inventory 3.5 weeks in. Why do people need to know this stuff? To be encouraged to sell. They know that it's never been lower. Inventory has never been lower. People want to move here. And to Brian's point, we cannot keep up with the demand. And so it will remain a seller's market as long as people continue to flock to Columbus and as long as builders continue to build at the slow pace. I know we see homes going up all over the place. It still ain't enough. So to answer your question, Dana, I think that next year our forecast would remain consistent at being a serious seller's market and being seriously difficult for buyers. So getting your mind wrapped around that, then we start to say, okay, well, if I know it's going to be tough next year for buyers, how do I get more sellers? Like, how do I make that easy on myself? And then it comes down to marketing. That's why I kind of go back to social media. If we could talk about social media every single week, I probably would. It's free. It's where the eyeballs are. and it gets you in front of the right people. Any questions about this this calculation?
I think one other thing we need to factor in with the slow pace is now is COVID too. That's going to change it for next year.
Yeah, who knows where that's headed. So I don't watch the news. I probably should, but I just don't. It makes me sick. Does anybody watch the news, and have you guys heard? I know we've had a spike. Has anybody heard any forecasts on that? I know they were originally saying that winter would be terrible.
I mean, we're back up to like record highs as far as cases reported per week. A lot of states are capping out the highest numbers they've had because people are burnt out on taking it seriously. Plus, it's with the shipping and everything and materials, I'm sure that's slowed down building a fair amount. I know personally getting appliances has been dragged out to a several week process just to get a dishwasher or a stove or a fridge can be quite the task now.
One of the things, Dana, I'd also say is, to Brian's point, the cost of construction now is going to go through the roof because people can't get wood. It's like the cost of materials is becoming exorbitant. So they're speculating the cost of building a home next year is going to increase by about 15%.
Wow.
When you take that 15% increase on a $400,000 home, gee whiz, that makes things difficult for people. And yet they'll spend the money because they have to, because it's so hard to find a already built home, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that number again, in order to do that calculation, quick calculation, go to the MLS, go to quick search, go to highlight the active listings. You'll get a number. You divide that active number of listings by the number of closed over the last week. And that's going to give you your weeks on hand. 3.5 weeks on hand. You can remember that number for the rest of this week because it might change next week. It changes every single day, honestly, but it's going to stay right around there this week.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great question, Dana, and a really good call out is what can we expect next year? And that's something that we don't have a crystal ball, and yet people expect us to know. People expect us to forecast what it's going to be. I always say this: I can't predict the future, but what the numbers are showing me is that next year is going to continue to be a seller's market. Don't also forget the political landscape, right? We're going to have a change. We may have a change of leadership. We may not. Regardless of what happens, that could impact our industry and a lot of industries around us that are full of people buying and selling homes. So it does make it very difficult to predict. If you ask Gary Keller, he thinks we're headed for a recession. But here in Central Ohio, it's different probably for Keith even so than it will be for us in Central Ohio, because Central Ohio, I don't want to say it's recession proof. I do want to say that there are so many jobs and so many people demanding real estate help right now that I don't think that, like Tabitha said yesterday, I don't think that the recession would hit us necessarily as hard as it might hit other parts of the country.
Mm-hmm.
Good question. What other questions do we have?
Has anybody started to use TikTok?
No, from everything I've seen, it's for 12-year-old girls.
I mean, like, we got some youngsters on here, but Michael doesn't even use Facebook. Katie, what do you use? Katie Hartley. Katie Matheson, I know you're a nerd too. So Katie Hartley,
what? What was that? You want to repeat that?
Katie Hartley, can you hear me?
Yeah. I know I need to like post more just on like all of my social media, but mostly Instagram.
Okay. Have you used TikTok at all?
No, I know kind of how, but give me a second. I need to drop the kid off at school.
That's fine. Yeah, Dana, I've thought about getting, I downloaded it. I get lost in those videos and before I know it, an hour's gone. So I need to stop looking at it. You know, I'm not sure if I've had this conversation with my coach before about if it's something that we should consider getting into. I think if you look at the average age of the average user, you're probably in the teens or low 20s.
Okay.
I don't know that that's your first time home buyer even these days. I think your first time home buyer is at least mid 20s, most likely high 20s on average. So I don't know if you're going to get a person to follow you for 10 years on TikTok. I'm not saying it can't be a viable resource. I mean, hell, go viral like the dude who drank the ocean spray and sang Fleetwood Mac. Have you all seen that video, by the way?
I didn't see the actual video, but I saw the after stuff. Like they gave him a truck and everything.
Yeah. I encourage you all to go to YouTube. I guess it's probably on now. Look up Ocean Spray Fleetwood Mac.
Scared.
It's so weird. It's funny and it was perfect and it went completely viral. If we could do something like that for our real estate industry or for your business, like I don't see how it would hurt, but going viral is harder than it sounds, I think.
Can I ask a specific question about a client, a potential?
Yeah. If it's an issue,
Um,
it's an issue for others.
So he reached out to me initially and we've had a couple of conversations. And he's just like downright not wanting to get pre-approved. He said he doesn't want to supply information to anyone. And I'm like, well, you, you have to unless you're going to make a cash offer. If you're going to finance, you have to get pre-approved or we can't, submit any offers. He keeps sending me properties that he wants to go see, but keeps telling me that he doesn't want to do anything about financing. So I don't know how to handle him. He's also sending me properties that he wants to go see that are over the budget that he has told me. And like he sent one today and he was like, I'm interested in this house if they'll take 200,000. Well, it's listed at 250. No, they're not going to take 200. Like, I just don't know how to deal with him anymore in a polite manner.
Sometimes all we can do is explain the facts and hope that it speaks to people. So one of the things that I would probably tell him in that situation where he wants to see a house and wouldn't give it more than 80% of its value is just show him market statistics. Say, hey, we're currently sitting on 3.5 weeks of inventory, which is the lowest we've seen in forever. How long has this house been on the market? Do you know?
Like 2 days.
Okay. Within the first 2 weeks, I typically advise all my clients that you really can't go much under asking, if at all.
Right.
Because they're going to get a list price offer. So the question you'd ask this guy is, if we see this place and you like it, would you be willing to do what it takes to win the home? And if his answer is yes, then you follow up with, well, that would require a pre-approval letter unless you're paying cash. So which one is it? At the end of the day, you don't want to waste your time. Your time is money too.
Right.
And so we have to sometimes weed out the bad ones that want to waste your time by just being very blunt with them. And if they don't like, you're going to come off in a professional manner. But at the end of the day, if they're going to waste your time, then that's not going to cut it. And if you need to fire a client, I would encourage you to do so if they're just tugging you around, As far as the pre-approval goes, I would ask them the simple question. If we found the perfect property today, would you write a contract? Would you write an offer on it? And if he says yes, you say, great, that's awesome news. And I would have to show proof of funds if we wrote the offer, when we submit the offer. So what's that look like for you, John? Is that a cash offer where we show them a bank statement? Or is that a pre-approval letter? We have one or the other. It's not zero. It's not neither. And you're just come at it from, you're giving him value, you're giving him information, you're being open and honest with him and transparent. But if he continues to say, I'm just not going to do that, then say, I don't know, John, I don't know how it can proceed then.
Right. That makes sense. Do you know exactly what is asked from them for pre-approval? Like, I know it's not a ton, right?
It's a fair amount of financial information, though, as far as your income and things like that, which a
Right.
lot of people are hesitant to give up for weird reasons.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what he's hung up on. He's like, I don't think I need to share that information. Well, if it's for a financial loan, yeah, you do have to give up that information.
I think if you would just tell him that everything you share with a financial institution, they must keep it in-house and private.
Okay.
Maybe that eases the burden on his mind. Because it's not, no, in order to get pre-approval, you normally have to submit some W-2 forms, some pay stubs, and they want to know what kind of assets you have and your
Tax
credit score. So, I mean, those are the 4 things off the top of my head that I know that they're going to ask for.
Right.
Most people can have that information whipped up in a day or two. The thing that I would worry about is this guy's money on the up and up? Like, or is he a crazy drug dealer?
Well,
Yeah, I know I'd
that's what I'm
applied
starting to
multiple
think. Like, is he not wanting to do it because I don't know, that there's something fishy, or he knows that he can't get pre-approved for what he's hoping? I don't know. Seems very fishy.
There are people with the money who still won't do it. I had someone inquire about a rental that was like $2,000 a month up in Powell, and the guy wanted to rent it, but he refused to apply, refused to do a background check, and refused to submit any of his proof of income to verify that he could actually afford it, and wanted us to just take him at his word, and he would not provide pay stubs or proof of income of any kind. So
Yeah,
there are
so
those people out there who just
did you
have this
deal with
mindset
him,
that they
Ryan?
don't need to. Huh?
Did you end up doing the deal with him?
No, I rented to somebody else. He tried to pull us. Well,
Exactly.
I guess your person isn't getting a qualified renter, and sure enough, a week later, yeah, they did, and they provided everything I asked for.
Oh yeah, and in this situation, in this market that we're facing, why would a seller ever accept an offer when they're not sure if the person can afford it?
Right.
They don't have to. So yeah, I think, Chelsea, that's a great question, and something we're all going to face at some point is eliminating the hurdle in the way of this person from a mental standpoint. And the only thing that we can do sometimes is give them information. I don't know how else to speak to certain people. I heard a quote once, and I've probably said it on here: information makes people think, emotion makes people act. So when you bring in the statistics, like, you know, how many homes are on the market, yada yada, but then you make him feel something through, well, hey, if we found you the perfect home and you fell in love with it and you wanted to offer, but you didn't get it because you didn't have a pre-approval letter, how would that make you feel? When you touch the emotional side of things, maybe that's what forces him to act.
Okay. Thank you.
Great question. What other issues are we facing right now?
I think I'm personally just still trying to figure out time management. It's getting better, but it's definitely part of my learning process.
I'm not gonna pick on you, but I'm gonna pick on you. What time's your day start? Every day.
Like, what time do I wake up, or what time do I start working?
Now, what time do you wake
Between
up?
7 and 7:30.
Okay, so that's inconsistent, right? What time do you go to bed?
Depends on if I hit that snooze button or
Hold
not.
on, I know the answer to this. What time do you go to bed at night?
Way too late.
Okay, That's not a number. That's inconsistent. I think the people, I think the highest, I don't want to say highest performers, but I think the people who have figured out time management have a pretty consistent set schedule. Um, and I think this is a great topic. We might need more time on this, honestly, but how do you time block? You've heard the term time block. People used to tell me that my first year of real estate. I was like, what is a time block? Oh, you're talking about a schedule? Like, yeah, let's not overthink it. It's a schedule. How do you set a schedule for yourself?
Mhm.
5:30, I've told you guys this multiple times. It's because I hope it rubs off on you, okay? 5:30 in the morning comes really early. Sometimes I don't want to do it. And I wake up at 5:30 because I know if I do, I'm going to get a whole lot done before the rest of the world wakes up. And because of 5:30, it forces me then to, on the back end, go to bed at a reasonable time. Because if I'm in bed by 9:30, I know I'm still getting my 8 hours. So I hate staying up late anymore, unless it's like the weekend or whatever. Good luck, Casey.
Bye, Casey.
I can't stay up late because I know that it will have a trickle down effect on the rest of on my next day's schedule. So I think, you know, it's funny. I go to a lot of like panel discussions with top performers and stuff because I want to learn what the best of the best are doing. Almost unanimously, they wake up at the butt crack of dawn, get a workout in, do some journaling, do some gratitude. They focus on themselves, right? Before they focus on others. Because if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of others. You're not going to be in the right mental frame. Your physical health won't be where it needs to be. You'll barely be able to take care of yourself, let alone others. So in our role, it starts with the start and the end, if that makes sense. So I think from there, like if you were to wake up at a certain time, so if it was 7:15 every day, boom, you've started your day. You know you probably need to go to bed by, for you, maybe it's midnight, right? But it's every single day. It's not going to waver too much. And if anything, you're going to go to bed earlier, so you're more well rested. So from there, then you can start kind of working backwards. It's just like working on our numbers. You got the start, you got the end. Well, what's the in between look like? You know you need 2 hours a day in order to get your 20 contacts. Or maybe for some of us, it's an hour and a half. Maybe for some of us, it's 2.5 hours. If we want to get our 100 contacts in, then we know we need to divide it by 5 because we don't want to work 7 days a week, right? So 100 divided by 5 is, well, that's 20 contacts a day. So you do the math. How long does that take you to do it? If you only figure out that 2-hour time block window, everything else will start to fall into place. But you've got to write it down. You've got to put it in your Google Calendar, because if it's not there in your calendar, then it doesn't exist. And you're going to consistently schedule stuff over top of it. And then you're going to look back at your week and be like, damn, where did my week go? I didn't get done with all those things I wanted to.
Okay, so a little bit more specifically, like let's just say like showings, for example. Do you personally have like a time frame of the day that you try to schedule any showings within? Or like somebody calls you and they want that 6 o'clock showing, well, you're probably gonna go, you know what I mean? Like, do you have a time frame that you try to stay within for showings, or do you just take them as you get them?
That's a great question. And I wish I could tell you I was better at protecting my family time. What I've done and what I did last year when I started to pick up on the amount of business I was doing was share with my wife on Sunday. Sunday is kind of our day to get on the same page for the week upcoming. And so it might be different for you guys, but for me, Sunday, we would look at the schedule, the calendar, and we say, hey, what do you have going on this week? And so if she had something going on Wednesday, then I knew that Wednesday was off limits because somebody has to take care of the kids, right? So I would say, okay, I'm going to leave Tuesday and Thursday available for showings if anything pops up. So then I know that I can funnel any showing requests to Tuesday or Thursday evenings. Now, if something needed done before the kids got out of school or before, I had to go pick the kid up from daycare, then maybe I could do it early afternoon on Wednesday even. But evening wise, you gotta work that out with your significant other to make sure that you've got coverage, because your kid coverage takes precedence over anything. And Michael, you're like, this is a lame conversation. I'm free all the time. But it pertains to you too. I'm sure you'd like to protect your Friday nights and Saturday nights, right? Like you'd like to go out and I don't know what you do for fun. Like you want to go mountain biking or whatever when you want to go. So it's a lot of communication, and I got much better at it as I identified my gap. And I think the gap that I had and still sometimes have is just wanting to say yes to everything. And I think a lot of us are similar. We have a fiduciary mindset where our goal is to take care of our clients, sometimes too well. They're going to be okay not seeing the house today and seeing it tomorrow. You set your schedule and teach people how to treat you, basically. So it's kind of like this coaching program. Everything is geared towards Thursday for us. Okay. I spend Tuesdays and Thursdays doing all coaching stuff. I recruit on Tuesdays and I do a lot of appointments on Thursdays. If I get a question that's not completely critical on a Wednesday, I might push the answer till the following day, because that's when I'm protecting my time. I'm working on my own home sale business on Wednesday, not coaching. And so that question may need answered tomorrow. But I don't think I've spurned any of you guys, right? I mean, you guys still get the answers that you need. It just might not be right that minute. So treat people how to treat you and your schedule, and they'll fall right in. I've never had a client go somewhere else because I didn't take good enough care of them in a timely manner. They all respect my time boundaries that I've set. And honestly, I set that boundary right from the onset. When I first meet with a person, it's always, hey, what's the best way to contact you? For me, it's text message. Text message me anytime you want. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I do want to tell you that from 6 to 8 every single weekday, I have dinner with my family. And then I try to get back to any questions you might have after 8 o'clock. Is that fair? And unequivocally, they will all say, yeah, that's cool. Make them treat your schedule the way you want it to be treated, essentially.
Thank you.
But write down your stuff. Get it in your schedule. I like Google Calendar. It's in my pocket literally all the time. And there are times where I'll set an appointment for a month from now, and if it weren't for Google Calendar, I will never remember it. Luckily, Katie helps me too. Like when we have an administrative thing coming up or a closing coming up, I don't remember all our transactions and when they close and stuff, but thank God Katie puts it in my calendar so that I know. Thanks, Katie. Nerd.
She's the best nerd.
Cool. We got 5 minutes left. What other questions? Michael, man, you're going through a lot of learning now, right?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Hey, quick question, Michael. Who pays commission in Central Ohio typically? The buyer or the seller? The seller. Sellers do. Good. That's a question that, sometimes, Michael asked me this question, and we take it for granted what Hondros teaches. They don't teach us the very, very basics. Who pays my salary? It's never typically the buyer. Here in Central Ohio, it's always the seller. So that was a great question that was asked. I should have answered well before we got to this point.
Hondros really doesn't teach that?
Hondros doesn't teach anything other than laws, man. It's embarrassing.
That's kind of why I'm glad I did the Columbus State route. It was a little more in depth.
Yeah, after doing it myself, I would love to do some revitalization of the old Hondros and just the state testing process. It's weird how a agent has to affiliate with a brokerage before they even get their license. You'd think you could pass the test and then go wherever you want, but
Yeah,
let
it's
it
still.
be. Hey, if there's no other questions, I want to leave you guys with this. A lot of you guys have been getting leads from us. We did not do any lead routing this week. We took a week off because I've been pumping a lot of money into it and seeing very little return. I want to ask you a rhetorical question, and that is this: what are you doing with the leads that you are getting? On some weeks, you're getting up to, 5+ leads. What are you doing with those leads? Are you calling them as soon as you get the lead? Will be the first question. And regardless of what happens after you call them, odds are you're probably not connecting with them. I would assume that most of the time you're not connecting that first call. Do you put them into a smart plan to communicate with them? Or are you just doing this all from your memory? And again, this is a rhetorical question because I know the answer for most of us is going to be we're trying to do it from memory. And for some reason, I don't have any appointments. The reason we don't have appointments is because we're not nurturing these people right. Yesterday, the stat was thrown out that the Facebook ads convert at about 1%, 1 to 3%. That means you got to touch these people. You got to keep touching them so that you can land one of those 1 to 3% and get yourself a $6,000 commission check. These people require a lot of touches over a lot of time in order to convert. So if you're only doing it from memory and you're only calling them when you remember to do it, you're not going to land that business and you're throwing my lead away. I'd be happy to use the leads that I'm giving y'all. So let's make sure when we do our one-on-one follow-ups here soon, we're going to start scheduling in the month of November. I'd like to sit down with each of you for at least 30 minutes and just go through some of your number goals and stuff so we can get on the same page and drive towards that number for 2021. That's going to be a question that I ask. How are you using the leads that you are being given? Because remember, this is not a privilege. It's something you got to earn. Keith, are you still on? Keith was driving. Keith had a success story for me. Keith, you're still muted. Keith ran some ads and had man, I don't want to put numbers in his mouth, but he said he got like 36 leads. He did a Facebook ad, 36 leads, I want to say, 12 appointments.
Wow.
Is that right, Keith?
Yeah, can you hear me finally?
Yes.
Okay, my Bluetooth wasn't working right. It was 28 leads, and I did get 12 appointments out of it. That's the first time I've had any success even close to that. Typically, I'm going through like 100 leads and not getting any. So,
what kind of ad was it?
It was just a simple Facebook ad for a listing. I ran 2 ads for the same house with 2 different art styles just to kind of compare. And between the 2 of them, it was a house that for some reason we've been showing it like crazy. Everybody wants to see it. And out of the 12 appointments, I picked up 2 buyer clients, maybe a third. I've got 3 offers. One of them we're probably going to counter offer tonight. I've got a meeting late tonight with the owners to figure out. But that's been very rare for me.
That's awesome, though. Congratulations.
If any of us could capitalize on even a quarter of that'd be great. So, good job. And obviously, you called these people, right?
Oh yeah.
What did you do to? Did everyone answer on the first? Did all 12 of them answer on the first call?
No, I probably get maybe 10% answers on calls, 70% voicemails, and the rest fake numbers. So I'll usually call, follow up with an email, and I do smart plans, but instead of doing the neighborhood nurtures, because my neighborhoods down here don't work, I do a smart plan that reminds me to send an email. And so what I do is I get a reminder to do an email, and then I follow up by creating another smart plan with the first name, last name, try to make it personal to the areas they're looking and put some links in it and stuff like that. So
Fantastic stuff. Keith, thank you for sharing. And if that doesn't inspire y'all to do a better job with the leads you're given, then I don't know what will, because that's going to turn into business. At least one transaction, I would assume, would come from 12. And if nothing else, maybe 11 more future pieces of business, because people are raising their hands. They want help. They're returning the phone call, which means they really want help. And hopefully that'll turn into dollars in the future. It's a good job, Keith. All right, guys, I'll talk to y'all later. Let's have a great week, and let's get your contacts, look at your numbers, put the hours in. You'll be rewarded. Promise. See y'all.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Josh. Bye.
Bye.